know is that the components that would cause the blood clotting, okay, those were not in the test. So when we look at serum, serum is going to be the stuff such as our electrolytes, our hormones, antigens, that sort of material. It's almost identical to the plasma, but it doesn't have the, now note what I'm getting ready to say. It does not have the clotting protein fibrinogen. What does that make you think about? What does that term? Fibrinogen. Fibers. There are 3 in the body. Collagen, reticular, elastic. But they cannot exist in their full form in this liquid matrix. So what the blood needs to do, it needs to have this material so that we can give rise to those fibers. Why would I need to have the ability for it to give rise to the fibers? Do what? In case your inside environment is breached, i.e., my integumentary system. Anybody had a cut lately? Okay. I don't know. Over here, which, oh look, they're kind of healing, but I swear it looks like I got bit by a snake. And over here, I don't know. I mean, I was working out in the yard over the weekend. You know, where I live, that's a huge possibility, but I ain't too worried about it. I'm still here. Okay? So here, okay, for that to heal, the skin, the layers, need to have ability or have access to the fibers. Because there's blood coming to this, it now has it.
We're just talking about the plasma here. So the serum is just the fibers being taken out of the plasma.
Serum would be, yeah, serum would be that missing. They wouldn't be looking at that. That would have been taken out.
And so when you're saying you've taken all those out, that's all the clumps that have already like clotted from it.
They would affect it and make it clot and use what was left over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, give the point of view of like tested out the fibers.
Well, now, there are certain things that need to be tested for that are not just simply the clotting factors. We know that there are blood disorders that might affect clotting, okay? And hemophilia is one of the big ones, okay? And what they do is if they get cut or hurt or whatever, they might need to go to the hospital and be given the clotting factor. But sometimes we may need to test the level of a hormone. We may need to test the level of a protein. We might need to test what is their level of albumins, which I'll mention in just a minute. So it might be that they don't need the whole component of blood. They only need part of it.
So they wouldn't be able to do a test on those things with the protein.
Depends on, I mean, it would depend on what process the doctor orders for the testing. And sometimes the sera is used as collection. For example, go back to that testing of a medication, for example. Sometimes they'll only collect the serum, for the serum to be tested. So it just depends on what are they looking for.
It's like when you do a finger stick for PTR and R.
A finger stick for what?
Like the PCR on check. I know there's one place I work, they have a machine that you, well, you do your own lab work there, like, and you send it to the lab. But they have a machine where you check the clotting factor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you do like, it's like a glucose stick, but it's a little deeper, a little deeper needle. And yeah, you can check your
And you put it in the machine and it checks it, does it spin it down like centrifuge?
No, it's like a glucose machine.
Like
a little bigger.
Okay.
And check the clotting factor. It's a real like fancy place. They have their own like, when you fully blood work, you have to go put in the centrifuge or something. Like you say, don't lift up the top, because then you gotta go really draw it.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow. Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It's like this is the only place I've ever worked that has it. But yeah, a lot of people, on blood clot.
Yeah, like blood thinner medications.
When they invest in one, but it's literally like the people finger stick, and they can check your clot factor right there.
Okay, probably checking to see if the levels of the medication are where they need to be. Because I know that on those types of medications, they do have to check a lot.
It's checking your
Prothrombin testing, prothrombin PTT test, prothrombin. Yeah, yeah. Now, in the plasma, note, we're talking in the plasma portion, okay? One thing that becomes important are proteins that can exist in this plasma portion. Once again, I go back to saying the only thing that we can create from the cells, from the DNA, whatever we know, the only thing that can come from that is a protein, right? Okay? So, wait a minute. I'm saying now that I've got proteins in this liquid. Where were the cells that could give me these proteins? There's an organ of our body that has a tremendous blood supply called the liver. And the liver produces a lot of the proteins that are needed in the blood. So these proteins, we're going to find that proteins that we find in the blood, they can help us with clotting, like we would be thinking of with those clotting factors, because that's proteins, okay? Immune defense, antibodies, for example. Transportation. What do you remember from chapter 17 when we were talking about the transport of hormones?
Like across the fat layer. Is that what we're talking about?
All right, now, we had the ones that were fat soluble, had the ones that were water soluble. That affected the way that they went to the cell and created or affected the product of the cell. But do you happen to remember, for example, transport of them? Do you happen to remember me pointing out something in the picture?
Protein carriers?
The protein carriers. That's an example of these proteins in the plasma helping us with transport. There are three categories of these proteins. Albumins, they're usually in the highest number. Globulins, and then fibrinogen. If you remember, one of them that I mentioned for the endocrine system, that the transport, they were called the globulins, globes. Okay? Now, albumins. Ever heard of that one?
respiratory system?
It's
Okay.
indicative, like if somebody goes and has like the test for the albumins and so forth, it can actually be indicative of some of the functions of the organs,
Sounds like albuterol.
Yeah.
the medication, to affect the muscle. Albumins, like I said, these are going to be the protein that are in the highest amount. They are small, they're not very large. They're very important because they are in such a high number. One of the things that they will affect is the osmolarity, meaning the water balance, movement of that water, which would then affect viscosity. Because the more water in the blood, the easier it flows. Now, albumins, they can help transport solids. Think of something like our electrolytes. Because they'll get in, they'll break up, become pluses and minuses. So they're there to help us transport different types of solids. And in turn, that helps with buffering. In other words, if I can do something in the blood, the body, I should say, if it can do something to help balance out the pluses and the minuses, I will not be affecting the pH level, which is important, okay? The globulins, they're bigger. They have a couple of subclasses based upon where they're from. If we have alpha or beta globulins, they came from the liver. Gamma globulins, ever heard of that? Do you happen to remember how?
My grandmother used to have to go get it tested because every 2 weeks or something.
What did she have? If you don't mind sharing, don't
I
know.
don't know. I was like,
Small. Okay. Not sure if you guys heard that, but she said her grandmother would have to go and get tested. This is with the immune system. Gamma globulins are going to be what happens with antibodies. Stuff that's going to deal with our immune system. Some people can be low in that. They actually could get like an infusion if they need it. So gamma means that it comes from the cells, the B lymphocytes that are with our immune system. And then we've mentioned this fibrinogen, okay? Because like I said, we can't have the actual fibers moving in this liquid because this liquid has to encounter the tissues of our body. And if we have fibers that are present and those fibers can do this number, okay, that means we're going to block stuff up rather than have it flowing freely. So that fibrinogen becomes important when we need to make a clot. But hold up, we just heard the mention about testing for that because some people can form clots. Okay, y'all ever know somebody who has, say for example, a blood clot, thrombosis, emboli? Okay, my mom, unfortunately, and she's had to be on like the blood thinner medicine and that sort of thing. A colleague of mine had one that was pulmonary, all right? So yes, it can work in a way that is not supposed to with these fibers. A couple of other things are involved though, but it can go wrong, so to speak. We've kind of looked at this. Viscosity, osmolarity. Viscous. Every time I hear this term, I think about the oil for my car.